Finally tonight on Halloween, more 19th century horror stories which have been resurrected by a rock guitarist 150 years after they first terrified the people of Paris. Diableries were cards depicting Satan and his followers, which, when held up to light and viewed with stereoscopic viewfinders, would transform into colourful 3D scenes. Although popular for many years from around 1860s, Diableries are very rare. But now all the existing editions have been collected, restored and reproduced in a new book by Brian May of the band Queen. You can see some of the images on the Front Row website gallery right now. The guitarist came to Front Row earlier with his partner on the project, photo historian Denis Pellerin. Brian May told me how he had first come across Diableries whilst browsing in Portobello Market in West London many years ago.
I used to go down there regularly, very early on a Saturday morning, because that's when you could get the bargains and find the stuff. The early bird catching the worm. Generally, I could find something in stereo, because I was completely bitten by the stereoscopic bug. I just had to find anything 3D.
So what year was it when you first saw a Diablerie card?
About 1970, probably. Yeah, I just ended up with one of these cards in my hand and thought, my God, that's very strange. What is that depicting? Held it up to the light and all the colours came through and the eyes glowed at me. And I can free view, so I can see things in stereo without the viewer.
How do you do that?
You just relax your eyes. It's like those magic eye pictures. You know, you can cultivate the knack of doing that. So I could see in glorious 3D, and I felt like I could walk through that window and touch these skeletons and ghouls and ghosts and Satan himself, of course.
And so there's a street vendor on the Portobello Road who's flogging you this card. Did he know what it was?
Nobody knew at that time. No, I said, where does it come from? He said, I've no idea. You know, just from time to time I get these. And I asked every collector that I could find all around the world, and nobody had any information. So what Denis has done, my fantastic co-writer and colleague, he has sat in dusty, cobwebbed rooms and discovered what these things really mean at last.
And Denis Pellerin, as a photo historian, you knew the significance of these cards. You've been studying this art form for many years.
I've been studying stereo for quite a while, and then one day I was asked to catalogue the collection of the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris, and that's when I first met the Diableries, and they had a whole set of them, because of course the photos had to be copyrighted in France in the 1860s, because there was censorship, and so every photographer had to bring 3 copies of every photo he would publish, and they had to go past the censors.
And just to describe them, they are cards. Each one of them features a diabolic tableau. So we have Satan at the centre,
exactly,
whipping people up into some kind of frenzy, or kind of directing his troops very often.
Yes, that's right. Yes, very often. And of course, nobody knew the meaning of these Diableries. So and there was nothing had been written about them. So we had to just to look anywhere, everywhere, to find some significance behind these stories.
Were they very popular in the mid-19th century in France?
They were popular, and they were published for over 60 years.
And they are photographed and they appear on cards, they're reproduced on cards, but then you hold them up to the light. In the original form in the 19th century, somebody would buy a Diablerie, hold it up to the light, and using a stereoscopic viewfinder, the thing would come into glorious 3D.
Yes, it's 3D in colour as well.
And
if you
colour.
held it to the light, they would come in colours.
And what's fascinating is it's a 2 or 3 stage process, because what we're looking at, or what originally the people holding up the Diableries would have seen, is the 3rd stage, because originally the tableaux were modelled in clay. So these were incredibly delicate, like maquettes, which were then photographed and then turned into the thin tissue.
Yes, there's many
viewers.
Stages to the thing. I mean, it's incredible. Just to make these models themselves is incredible. They're tabletop tableau, as you say. And then they're photographed in stereo with a stereo camera. And then they would have had to take that negative out and cut it in 2 and transpose it and make an internegative. It's a bit like making vinyl records, actually. Yeah. Then they would print from that internegative. Then the cards have to be coloured on the back. They have to be pricked. They have to put the stuff on the back.
Incredibly intricate process.
They put another layer of tissue on the back and they sandwich it all between 2 layers of cardboard. It's an incredible process.
And Denis, do any of the original maquettes exist?
Unfortunately, no. Well, we searched everywhere, but we haven't found any trace of them. Not even one tiny skull.
So all of them are either destroyed or recycled. Because I guess if they were in clay, maybe they were.
Yes, some of the figures were recycled because they appear. Some of the skeletons, for example, appear in several views.
So you have researched and catalogued and then reproduced all of the cards in existence. Then, and Brian, you have the biggest collection in the world of existing cards.
One of the biggest collections in the world. I don't know if it's the biggest. maybe it is. I don't know.
Yes,
Maybe it is of Diableries. Maybe it
He's
is.
being modest to me.
It's not complete, though. There are still things missing, and we're looking for those 2 cards which nobody has seen. You know?
2? There are only 2
Just
missing.
2 which we've never seen.
It's like collecting cigarette cards for you, then.
Very,
Is it?
do you know what it is, really? Did you used to collect cigarette cards as a kid? I did. Used to go. I mean, we didn't have them in the cigarette packets, but
Yeah.
we used to get them in packets.
Well, I used to get them in packets of Weetabix or whatever.
In
But so there are 2
Wow,
cards
Weetabix.
out
Ah,
there.
yeah. Well, the Weetabix is a
Actually,
very
yes.
important thing because they were stereo cards that you got in Weetabix. Yeah, that's what
true,
started me
yeah.
off, really.
And it's like that thing, you get out the Weetabix packet and then there were pictures of animals in the jungle
right.
or whatever, or possibly footballers, and then you'd look at, have your
You send off your
stereoscope.
1 and 6pence for your stereoscopic viewer, and Bob's your uncle.
And looking at these images of Satan and his diabolical followers, it brings to mind the words of an old song, Beelzebub had a devil set aside for me.
Yes, you know, I don't
Can't
think
remember which
anyone else
song
has
that was,
mentioned
but
that. Yeah, it's a very little-known song, isn't it? Really, yes.
Yeah, now, it bears no relation then. I mean, it wasn't that you showed Freddie Mercury your collection one day and he said, aha.
He was very aware of my obsessions, my sort of interests, you know, and he enjoyed the stereo pictures, and he loved photography, Freddie, actually. His greatest joy when it was invented was this camera, the Polaroid camera, which could give you an image straight away, and he spent his time going around taking pictures of all his friends and giving all the pictures away. But he saw my stereo images and he enjoyed them. Yeah, so who knows? There might have been an influence there.
Brian May and Denis Pellerin on their book of Diableries, out now in hardback.